All right, what should you chapter? I want to walk through just a couple of things really quick that hopefully will inform your read here. As we've said before, there were several messiahs, there were several messianic figures around the time of Jesus, anywhere between like 50, maybe even 100 years before his birth, and then we know the last and kind of greatest of the would-be messiahs was a guy named Simon Bar Kokhba, whose ministry and revolution against Rome was between 132 and 135 of the Common Era. And so one of the questions is like, well, why did Christianity arise in the way it did when the other messianic movements seemed to fail? They all resulted in the death of the leader, including Jesus, and yet there was something unique about this Christian tradition. And so be sure that you're paying attention to how he's going to argue about this question. And he says even here that the best explanation takes all the evidence into account and in turn provides the best explanation for the origin, the shape of all of the evidence. And so be sure that you are looking for his argument here. How and why did Christianity take the shape that it did? And he, on the next page, is saying that the Gospels make two things clear: that something intervened between the death of Jesus and the start of the mission in his name, and the mission had a different character than Jesus' own ministry because of what intervened. And so what is this? What is this intervention? What really seemed to happen? Christians really do make the argument that Jesus was dead, that he was killed. This is kind of the pinnacle, the climax, in some ways, of all four of the Gospels, that Jesus was not asleep, but rather that Jesus had died. And they really emphasize this to a large extent. And yet, again, Christianity arose. And so why? Well, in many ways, a lot of scholars, especially Christian scholars, say that it's because of the resurrection. So what did the resurrection mean then for Christians? You're going to need to be very clear on this. And I think that this paragraph does a pretty good job at talking about the cosmic significance. I know that today a lot of people talk about Christianity as getting you into an afterlife, as setting your next life, your afterlife, up for success in heaven, if you will. And yet, notice how this paragraph is really making the argument that the present reality was what was most meaningful for these Christians. That the resurrection meant something very significant for the here and the now. If you are familiar with the Lord's Prayer, every time we pray at school, we say, "Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth." And so notice his claim here that the resurrection had earthly significance, had significance for people here and now. And that's what I want you to pay attention to in the overall aspect of this chapter.